Want to understand how big and powerful American full-size pickups can get? Then check these two monsters out. The Chevrolet Silverado 1500 ZR2 and the Ram 1500 TRX. Oversized, over the top, and over here. But do they work in Australia? The ZR2 is the newly arrived flagship of the Silverado range in Australia, adding more off-road capability to the Chev pickup. The TRX has been around a little longer and it adds more of everything, power, size and potency compared to the standard Ram 1500. Ram named the TRX after the Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur because it reckons it's the apex predator of trucks. The prices of both these trucks is substantial, but there's also a big gap between them. It recognises the amount of bespoke work that's gone into the TRX. And that gap is made even wider by our test truck's $10,000 optional panoramic sunroof. While lots of numbers we're quoting here are impressive, the warranties aren't. Nor do either of these trucks come with cap price service programs. The ZR2 has a higher ride height and cutaway bumper to help its off-road aspirations, but it still looks a lot like a Silverado. The TRX is very much its own thing, wider and taller than a standard Ram 1500 with functional vents lacerating its body to aid power, cooling and aerodynamics. For all their differences, some things are very similar. They are both dual cabs that measure up almost 6 meters long, and they are both enormously heavy. The ZR2 is more than 2.5 tonnes and the TRX just over 3 tonnes. The ZR2's 6.2 litre naturally aspirated pushrod V8 is exactly the same as one you'll find in the other Silverado sold in Australia, the LTZ. With the aid of cylinder deactivation, it actually claims a half-decent fuel consumption rate. Now you can't say the same thing about the Hellcat 6.2 litre supercharged V8 found in the TRX. It claims an epic amount of horsepower and torque outputs, but it also chews through an epic amount of fuel. The ZR2 hooks up to a 10-speed auto and the TRX an 8-speed. Both trucks come standard with sophisticated 4x4 systems, including low range for serious bush bashing. There are also long travel suspension systems with advanced shock absorbers to help both on-road and off-road behaviour. Without standard side steps, it's a big step up into the cabin of the ZR2. But once you get up here, you can't help but be impressed by the generous amount of space. The ZR2 also impresses with its presentation, trim materials and finish quality. Remember, this is a vehicle that's been converted to right-hand drive locally by the Walkinshaw Automotive Group. They've done a great job. If anyone can't find storage space for their stuff in the ZR2, then they're just not trying hard enough. There are bins, there are cup holders, there are pockets, there are glove boxes. They're everywhere. There's even secret storage in the rear seat. For 2023, the Silverado range, including the ZR2, upgrades with this new infotainment screen and this new digital instrument panel. They're both a significant improvement on what came before in terms of both legibility and configurability. The ZR2 comes with standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connection, which is handy because it misses out on standard embedded satellite navigation. There's also no head-up display. You get a 360-degree camera to aid manoeuvring the ZR2, plus up to another 13 camera views to help you judge distances. Astonishingly, for such a big vehicle that sticks out so far in front of the driver, there are no front parking sensors in the ZR2, nor is there any form of hands-off assisted parking. Thanks to its side steps, it's easier to get up into the TRX than the ZR2, but once you do get in the cabin, they're very similar. There's just heaps of space in here. The TRX is also a local right-hand drive conversion job by Walkinshaw. It feels and looks that little more luxurious and pampering than the ZR2. For instance, the seats in both are generous, but the TRX base is that much more supportive under thigh. The TRX rivals the ZR2 for places to stash your stuff. There's all the obvious places, plus secret compartments under the rear floor. The TRX comes with Ram's Uconnect infotainment system, accessed via this 12-inch screen. The instrument panel is old-style analog dials, but between them is this comprehensive digital information screen. The TRX's system allows cabled CarPlay and Android Auto and includes wireless charging, embedded sat-nav and a head-up display. The TRX also gets a 360-degree camera and a group of other cameras around the body to help you see what's happening way out there. Not as many cameras as the ZR2, but still helpful. The TRX includes front and rear parking sensors, but again there are no hands-off parking functions to assist in tight spots. Pity, because this is a huge vehicle. As previously mentioned, the ZR2 misses out on some gear you'd think was a given at this price. Embedded sat-nav and a head-up display. No standout emissions from either the ZR2 or TRX when it comes to safety gear, but neither gets an ANCAP safety rating either. The ZR2 is as spacious in the rear seat as it is in the front. You can fit 3 adults across this seat, and your comfort level is aided by the nice flat floor. There is plentiful storage, including big door bins and seat back pockets, basic aircon adjustment, USB ports and 4 cup holders split between the fold-down armrest and the centre bin. Like the ZR2, the TRX is very generous back here in the rear seat. Sure, you're a little bit knees up because of the body-on-frame construction, but you could comfortably fit 3 adults across the bench. There's no shortage of storage options, aircon vents and double cup holders in the back of the storage bin. Like the ZR2, the centre rear window also power slides open. So let's talk about the trays. Like, for any ute, they're really important, aren't they? Well, not so much with these two, because they're so much more about the driving than the carrying. For all their power, size and suspension sophistication, their payloads top out well under 800 kilos. Your standard Ranger would carry more. The ZR2 wins out on most measures. It's longer, wider and deeper, except between the wheel arches where the TRX has a tiny bit of extra width. Both vehicles have hooks for securing loads, spray embed liners and partially powered tailgates. But they don't get standard tonneau covers. Okay, let's go do some driving. We're going to take these two in a real variety of conditions to try and test their flexibility and suitability for Australia. We'll drive them on-road, off-road, we'll stick loads in them, we'll drive them unladen, just to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Having spent some time in the old Silverado, it really is quite amazing how much more upmarket it feels in here now with this new dashboard presentation. Even before you start appreciating the driving changes, you do feel like you're in a better vehicle. And the ZR2's L87 pushrod V8 doesn't so much step as stride forward. This is a strong engine, it just can't quite overwhelm because it's got lots of weight to push. For a vehicle of this size and weight and off-road intentions, the ZR2 is a pretty competent on-road handler. The mud terrain tyres aren't a big fan of greasy bitumen though. They do tend to scrub out a bit in a corner. The ZR2 rides on Multimatic spool valve dampers and they are trick. They cope exceedingly well unladen and settled a little more when we added a 325 kilogram load in the back. Being a ladder frame vehicle, the ZR2 is pretty well set up to be decently quiet in the cabin, but some clunking from the drivetrain and roar from the tyres does permeate. More pleasingly, there's a pretty aggressive exhaust noise when you press the throttle too. The ZR2 provides a panoramic viewing platform. It's a pity it misses out on the camera rear view mirror standard in the Silverado LTZ, because that always provides an unimpeded view. From the moment you jump in the driver's seat of the TRX, it just feels that much more malevolent and aggressive than the ZR2. The flat bottom steering wheel, those pronounced flappy paddles for gear changes, the performance gauges in the instrument panel, and then of course you've got that supercharger whine. Little can prepare you for just how monstrous the supercharged engine's performance capabilities are. This 3-ton truck is simply hurled up the road. The TRX is so big and so heavy and so wide, it's pretty hard to say it handles well. I'd say it handles well for its size, but you do spend a lot of time worrying about just where you're sending it and if it's going to fit. The more open and wide the spaces, the better it likes it and the more relaxed I am. The TRX gets its own trick shock absorbers made by Bilstein, and again they do an excellent job of delivering ride comfort either unladen or with our test 325 kilogram load on board. In fact, the weakness carrying a load exposed in both cases was brakes. I felt they were already working hard, and the added 325 kilograms didn't help. All things considered, the TRX is a pretty refined place to travel. No, it's not really quiet. You get roar off the massive all-terrain tyres, and you get engine beat and engine supercharger whine. That's probably a good thing, really. So yeah, no rattly tin can at all. The TRX provides a panoramic viewing platform, but it needs it because you spend so much time worrying about what's happening way off in the distance at each corner of the truck. Four by four specifics here about these two trucks. They're what's called in the US parlance desert runners, which means they're primarily designed to go fast over open country, desert sand dunes in California, Nevada, Arizona, that sort of territory. Also in the States where there's a lot more choice of these full-size pickups. They're not really direct competitors. The Silverado is a development of the Trail Boss, which we've had in Australia. It's got a bigger engine, multi-matic shocks, dual diff locks, both driver adjustable front and rear, and more ground clearance, but the frame underneath it is essentially the standard Silverado frame. The TRX is a bit of a different proposition. It's a step up. It's got a 75% new frame. It's got the ripping supercharged V8 Hellcat engine, which we've touched on already. It's got more ground clearance. It's got Bilstein Blackhawk shock absorbers, which are adjustable by the driver. There are actually 8 drive modes that the car can work through for both on and off-road. It's also running these massive 35-inch Goodyear Wrangler tyres, which you can see behind me here on the car, and they're the same brand on the Silverado, they're just a bit smaller. So there you go. We're going to take our 2 desert runners and drive them around this quarry here and see what happens. Could be a bit tight for them, but you never know. In these conditions, with some tight turns and tracks hemmed in by trees, the ZR2 emerged that little bit easier to handle because it is that bit narrower. It also has better ground clearance, so it didn't touch down as much as the TRX. But the Ram isn't far behind. It's got massive grunt and wheel articulation, so it can cope with just about any obstacle. It's just getting around the tight corners and between the narrow gaps that's a challenge. No doubt these two would prefer wide open spaces, but even in these conditions, their capabilities to go off-road are obvious. And what about economy? Well, both blew their claimed averages out of the water. The ZR2 averaged 16 litres per 100 kilometres on our test loop unladen, and 19.9 litres per 100 kilometres when 325 kilograms was added. The TRX started at 22.1 litres per 100 kilometres and climbed to 23.2 litres per 100 kilometres with the added load. To be honest, apart from that brake thing we noted earlier, the TRX barely even registers the extra weight. That's how overwhelming this engine is. In fact, overwhelming is a good way to describe the driving experience as a whole. The ZR2 is big and brawny, but the TRX is just wacky. It's almost unbelievable. Everything in the TRX has been dialed up to 11. Calling it the apex predator is spot on. I'm just not sure saddling up with something that nuts in the Aussie environment really works. Look, if I had the commute from Birdsville to Dalhousie Springs every week via the Simpson and had an unlimited stock of premium unleaded, then why not? But if I had to choose between these two, and even if I had the extra money, I'd go for the ZR2. Yeah, it's oversized and it's over the top, but it kinda, sorta makes sense in the Aussie environment. I'm not sure you can say that about the TRX. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos and let us know what you think in the comments below.